My name's Marley Polowyj-Stephen. I've been a Sunshine Coast resident since I was a very young child, 5 years old. Lived in a range of different places from behind the hinterland, Maleny, Noosa, down the coast. And so I've gotten a good taste of what it means to live on the Sunshine Coast and of the culture and the ecology and the people. And yeah, all of those things have gone in to inspire my artwork to a really, really high degree. And yeah, just doing the same thing at Mountain Creek at the moment, and yeah, happy to be here. Yeah, cool. So I got into art at a very young age, like all kids do. You know, all kids paint and draw and stuff. And I think that my parents just thought that it was something that, like, oh, he really likes this, so we're going to keep buying him art supplies and tell him that he's good and it's going to make him feel good and he's going to keep doing it. So I just sort of went like that. And I've got ADHD, so I fidget a lot in school. Honestly, just in classes, scribbling in my books and not paying attention is how I started getting good and started getting, I remember being like 12 years old and just filling these A4 sheets with just patterns and symbols and stuff, and I was really proud of it. And it sort of just went from there. Throughout high school, I just continued that stuff in my own time, and then after high school, it just really took off. And I started getting into things that I never thought that I'd be able to do. I never thought that I could paint. I thought that I was just a drawer, pens and pencils, and then I ended up doing this kind of stuff, and continually impressing myself, which is nice. Yeah, so the work that I'm displaying here is the culmination of a lot of creative impetus from a very big life change. Last year I had a big life change and introduced a lot of fresh energy. It was about this time last year, coming into spring, so I had all that good stuff going on. And yeah, I just had a lot of motivation and time to put into this collection over the last few months. And yeah, it's nice, it's vibrant, it's colourful, and each one kind of has its own intrinsic meaning. I don't know whether I can articulate that or not is another story, but yeah, no, it's fantastic having such a well curated space dedicated just for my stuff, and the curators have done a fantastic job, and it really helps each individual piece shine on its own and at the same time feel part of a cohesive collection. Yeah, so I'm really stoked to be here and to see my pieces displayed like this. It's really special. This one's pretty good. I like this one a lot, 3 green hearts. During that sort of crazy time of a lot of change, this was another mini big time of change, and it was great. The whole thing was like a meditation. It changed the entire way that I lived my life. I didn't watch any YouTube or I didn't watch any content for like 2 weeks, and all I did was just listen to music and paint in various locations around the coast in my bedroom for hours and hours and hours. And yeah, I was really happy with how crisp I was able to get everything, and the place that level of attention brought me to was really special, and it's reflected in the name of the exhibition, Transcendent Beauty. Like when you go beyond that ordinary day-to-day rigid thinking and you go into that more expansive, open and free state of mind. Yeah, that was a lot of that during this piece. So yeah, and it's just nice. I love the vegetation of the Sunshine Coast, the wet sclerophyll communities. They're incredibly biodiverse, really beautiful, so much colour, sight and smells, and it's just, yeah, it's a fantastic place to be and to kind of bring that into my art was nice. It was nice. It felt like talking to a friend. Yeah, I'd like people to walk away from this exhibition with even the smallest amount of a lapse in ordinary thought. Like, even if they just looked at it for a second and the colours and shapes that they saw meant more or were more attractive to them than their own habitual thinking patterns. Even for a split second, that would be what I want people to take away from this exhibition. And I think that in a broader sense, that is one of the most powerful things that you can do with art, is show people, well, not even show people, but help people realize in the least pretentious way that there's something deeper to them than just the TV static that's constantly going through their heads. Yeah, I think transcendentalism sounds really big and distant almost. Like, I don't think people realize that it's a lot more of an ordinary experience than they think. It's not like meditating in a cave for 10 years and then you get a lick of it. It's like when your coffee is really good in the morning and you know, you have a sip and whatever was going through your head before that, you know, you're there with the coffee, and you know, maybe it makes you feel the sunshine a bit more in that moment. You know, those little moments are transcendental because they take us beyond the day-to-day mental patterns that we all habitually act out. And you know, it shows us that things can be different, that they're not that there's like a different potential of life, but that there is a deeper part of themselves that they might not be aware of. And it is through the introduction of everyday transcendental experiences where you're just present, you're not thinking. That is, I think, one of the things that could make people's lives a lot better, because maybe they might realize that their problems aren't as big or as scary or as unmanageable as they might think. And within my art, yeah, I try to, I use my art as a way to reach those places. And I think that the way that the art is, regardless of whether it's music or ceramics or jewelry or 2D stuff, I think that I heard it in a song ages ago and I really liked it, but the way that you feel when you're making something is the way that the audience will feel when they're looking at it. Because maybe it's a bit more of a collective thing, maybe you're tapping into something that's universal, or maybe you're not, maybe everybody sees things completely different. But for me, and my own subjective way of interpreting things, it does have that quality to it. And as well, if you do look at things from a bit more of a traditional perspective, in certain practices like Zen, Buddhism, they use certain analogies like sky mind to talk about and describe these states of mind. And in some of my artwork, I try to bring that big sky, the big blue sky that completely dominates all the clouds and everything else. I think those are the most powerful images because they are kind of symbolic, and I think that it really does speak to a deep part of us that does get it, and it's just sort of waiting for our conscious minds to kick into gear and figure it out and be like, oh, that's right, I remember now. So the Eastern motifs are they're not intentional, but they just come through because I have spent so much time learning about that kind of stuff, and it's just ended up being incorporated into my personality and my worldview. So it just kind of intuitively comes out. Sometimes it's a bit more deliberate But usually it's just what comes out, but it is heavily influenced by that kind of stuff. And, you know, even, and a big part of that, you know, was maybe having experience with the Chenrazig Institute Art Studio, and seeing, like, you know, the stuff that I like doing done with the intention of creating, you know, sacred objects and these things that are supposed to be imbued with this intrinsic quality of, you know, like for transcendentalism. And yeah, so that stuff I think definitely did influence it a lot, because art has always played a really big role in those traditions for conveying things that are hard to, or maybe impossible to talk about, to articulate verbally, but you can understand with analogy or symbols or you know, non-verbal representation. And transcendentalism is universal because it takes you to the universal space. When you transcend, you know, ordinary thinking and day-to-day stuff, you also transcend everything that is normative to you. All of the labels of shoulds or shouldn'ts kind of go with that, and it doesn't take you to like necessarily like a lawless, amorphous place, but it takes you to this universal